afternoon and good evening. This is Dr. B, Brian Arnold, and I just wanted to say I can't wait to have another great show. I get so excited when I get to do these. I get to do them now for the last 3 years. We've been doing the Journey to Freedom podcast, and it was my first bigger podcast that I wanted to do. And I don't know, Vance, if you know this about way it came about and how why we were doing it. And so I started out. I went to this conference. It was called the Trust Leadership Conference, and I got to. It was in Minnesota. I don't usually hang out in Minnesota, but I go up to Minnesota, and I'm realizing that this is a great conference. I am learning so much about what does it mean to trust, and what does it mean to lead with trust, and if we can start with that, then we're going to be okay. And I'm looking around the room. There's 500 people in the room. We're learning. It's a 3 day conference, and then I count, there's like 30 folks of color in the whole room. And I'm like, why is my community, why are the folks that I hang out with not getting this information? Why are we not spending a whole bunch of time learning about trust? Because, in my experience, and I don't know if it's yours, but we struggle, especially as Black men. Sometimes we struggle with trusting ourselves. Sometimes we struggle with trusting each other. Sometimes we struggle with trusting our women. I think all coaches do, but ours just seems to be one where trust is an issue. And if we can figure out how to do trust a little bit better, I think we can be better. And so I came back home and I got excited and I started doing some coaching and started meeting with some young folks and just talking about this trusting. I even went through his workshop series and became a trusted leader, with the licensing and certificate that he gives out. And then I said, you know what, I really need to find out, are there men out there that are doing it right? Are there men out there? Because I know there are, but how come we don't see them everywhere? And so I said, I'm this year, I'm going to do 100 podcasts. And I'm going to do, at first I said all of just folks of color. And then a guy said, no, I think I want you to do black men. I'm like, but I don't want to just do a black man. Because I guess whether it was a trust issue or I'm not sure exactly what all it was. But that first year we did 105 episodes. And we're almost approaching 300 episodes now of all black men who have been and made an impact in at least, some over the world, most of them in the United States, from the tip of the East Coast all the way down to San Diego, and from, Seattle, Washington, all the way down to Florida, and everywhere in between. And so I'm so glad that we have Vance on today. It has just been so fun doing these, and I get so excited, and I get to hear stories of overcoming and stories of, hey, this is what it took to make it in this world. And so, Vance, thank you for being on today. Thank you for taking your time all the way from Philadelphia to, I'm in Denver, Colorado, but we get to do some stuff together. And so, please, I want you to tell your story. Your story can start anywhere in life you want to. I usually tell my guests, you might not want to make it up. If you do, I won't know because I've never heard it before. But if your mom watches it or your relatives watch it, you'll be in trouble. So I'll let you tell your story however you want to, and then we'll just chop it up after that and have a good time today. So thank you again for being on. The floor is yours. Let's hear everything about Mr. R. Vance Cooper.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on today. So once again, Dr. Vance Cooper, I am a native of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, born and raised. Grew up in Philly. I've lived in Philly for the majority of my life. After I finished high school, I actually went to a school called Johnson C. Smith. It's an HBCU located in Charlotte, North Carolina. So, really, Charlotte is the only other place I've lived for an extended period of time outside of Philly. So, was down there, had a great time, amazing experience at my HBCU. Try to get down for homecoming pretty frequently. I've been down more often than not.
Mhm.
But After I graduated college, came back home. I went to St. Joe's University for my master's of health administration, and then I ultimately went on to complete my doctorate in corporate leadership. So I have my PhD in corporate leadership from a small university called Alvernia University in Pennsylvania. It's in Reading, which is about an hour outside of Philly. So my primary career has been in healthcare. So I started off in long-term care as an admissions director. So I've been in healthcare for really the last going on 15 years now. So I've worked in long-term care. I've worked in inpatient hospitalization as well. So I actually work in the majority of my healthcare career has been spent on an inpatient mental health treatment. I'll just full disclosure, I am not a therapist or a clinical expert. I do admissions and business development for a hospital called Lower Bucks Hospital in my area, and so I've been here for about 10 years. What it looks like for me, making sure that the patients that we get referrals for, managing the admissions process, making sure that we have all the appropriate criteria for patients, ensuring that we have all the proper consent, since when you're admitting for inpatient, it is a serious thing since you're behind a locked doors. So we have to have a consent, just making sure we have all the proper consents, and then also doing business development to make sure that the greater community is aware of the services that we provide. And then outside of my work at Lower Bucks Hospital, I have a company called Access Purpose. I have a business partner in that venture. So what we do is marketing, branding, and leadership development services. So my main passion is specifically leadership development, because I really have a passion, really helping people recognize unrealized potential within themselves. Because I find that, especially as a person who has going through all the rigors of getting a doctorate in leadership, what I recognize is that a lot of people don't view them. I like to have a more practical approach to leadership rather than a theoretical approach, because a lot of people don't really recognize the leadership gifts within themselves. So my goal is always to ask the right questions, engage in the correct and the proper dialogue for people to really be able to change and kind of reframe the way that they look at themselves, so that rather than looking at themselves as a follower, I want everybody to be able to look at themselves as leaders, because the reality is that we all are leaders. We all have special talents, unique talents that were given to us. Everybody does something better than the next person. It's just a matter of us being able to recognize and embrace that. So my goal is always to help empower people and to bring those qualities and those capabilities outside of and I want to bring that out of them and help them bring and use their unique talents to influence the people that they're supposed to be influencing. So that's really my story in a nutshell. I'm also involved in a number of different community initiatives. First and foremost, had love my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha. So I'm a proud member. Been a member of Alpha Phi Alpha for the last 18 years. Cross at Johnson C. Smith Alpha Omicron chapter. So I'm still active at my I'm active in my chapter locally up in Philadelphia. So just making sure that I'm involved in community service initiatives, various initiatives with youth. Very passionate about making sure that I am helping youth also recognize the leadership qualities within themselves as well, especially young men. I have a special, just kind of a soft spot for young men, just making sure that they feel empowered, especially when maybe they might not have the best upbringing, or maybe they not might not have the best situations that are going on in their households, but just really making them feel empowered, making them believe that, and making them helping them to be able to see themselves in a positive light, and helping them, especially if they're not dealing with the best circumstances, just helping them be able to see beyond their current circumstances, and helping them recognize that everything is temporary, and helping them recognize that they really do have bright futures as long as they put the work in and apply themselves, and really just taking the time to really recognize the natural talents that they do have to be able to showcase to the world and really make an impact on a world in a major way. So I have a special unique soft spot for the young men that I work with. And then also I'm a member of a number of different various boards, nonprofit boards. I'm actually, so I'm currently the president, but I'm actually the outgoing president of local senior center. We have two centers here in the Philadelphia area. So I've been the president of that board, served on that board for a number of different years. I'm on a couple of advisory boards at a couple of universities as well, and then also on another board for the one of the local area on aging, which is basically like adult protective services. So making sure that I'm serving. I have again have a special passion for working with young people, but I also have a special passion for advocating for seniors as well, because I do recognize that the senior population sometimes is a forgotten population. They are facing sometimes they're facing various barriers to getting services, and just making sure that I am doing my part to advocate for seniors, and from a social standpoint, and then also making sure that they are educated about the various things that they're entitled to. I'm also, one of the things I did not mention as well is I've also been a licensed health insurance agent in Pennsylvania for the last probably about 15 years now. And so I can maintain my license to make sure that I'm able to properly educate seniors on how to. I mean, I do individual policies as well, but I'm especially passionate about making sure that I'm helping seniors navigate the complex world of Medicare. Because quite frankly, a lot of people, since it's constantly changing, a lot of people sometimes they don't even realize what they have. Then unfortunately, you have lots of people with deceptive and misleading practices where they're maybe preying on seniors. Unfortunately, putting them in plans that are not really working for them, not looking up their doctors, not looking up their medications. So I'm very passionate about making sure that I'm educating the seniors on what the things that they're entitled to under Medicare, but then also making sure that I'm doing my part to do the work for them, to help them select the best plan based on their unique health circumstances. So that's another thing that I'm passionate about as well. So as you can see, I have my hand in multiple different pots, but all in all, my biggest thing is making sure that I'm serving people, because I service, like I love to serve, and so any way that I'm able to serve people, if it's just if it's doing something for somebody, or even if it's just giving advice, I'm always looking for ways to be able to serve.
Wow, man. So thank you so much for all the things that you're doing and all the ways that you're embedded yourself into the community. I'm so lost right now because I got all these questions that I want to ask, and I don't know where to start, and all the things that you're doing, because there's so many parallels in our lives and that kind of stuff. When I think about leadership, and just thinking about some of the Maxwell books that I've read, and he's like, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And
It's one of the
if you're
best.
if you're trying to lead and there's nobody following you, you're only taking a walk. And I see that. No, you're putting yourself in those spots. My doctor's in educational leadership, so a little bit different, but I think leadership is still that one core thing that then ignites people, that allows people to grow. In my coaching program right now, I start out with what we call, like Zig Ziglar used to call it, the wheel of life. And so I talk about identity and faith and leadership and health and insurance, and finance and relationships and purpose. And so we see this, these things. And so I guess I want to go back a little bit. I want to hear about your family and what you're doing. All how do you have time to do all the stuff you do now? But to go back, just to when we think about identity and we think about the person that we've become, you decided to go to school. You decided to go from, Pennsylvania, which is not considered the South, not even a little bit, and then you go to North Carolina, which is considered the South, a lot of it, and the culture and everything that changed. Uh, who were you that said this is going to be my trajectory? I mean, when you went to North Carolina, were you planning on getting your doctorate and doing all the things you've done? Or was that all the progression? Kind of just talk about those identity shifts a little bit.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I initially graduated high school, I wanted to be a doctor, but I wanted to be a medical doctor.
Okay.
So when I first started, I was actually on like a pre-med track where I was majoring in biology. I love science when I was in high school. I actually, it's funny because I look back and think about how I spent my summers. There were actually several summers when I was in high school where I had the opportunity to shadow one of it was a gentleman, rest his soul, Dr. Melvin Jackson. He was actually a member of our church and a good friend of my dad. But what Dr. Jackson was he was a primary care physician, and what Dr. Jackson would do is he invited me to basically shadow him in his office over the summertime. So Dr. Jackson, I would be in the room when he's meeting, talking to patients. He introduced me to several other doctors. Like I got a chance to be able to like view surgeries and shadow other doctors during procedures that they were doing. So I was dead set on being a medical doctor. And then I got to college and I did all right my freshman year. And then I'll never forget, like my sophomore year, I was sitting in this ecology class that I had. It was a guy, rest his soul. It was Dr. Fail is his name. It was his name was literally Dr. Joseph
Phil.
Fail,
Oh
Fail.
gosh. Oh gosh.
And so we we had his class, and he was an excellent professor. But I'll never forget it, the day. It was we had ecology class. So we had our four, of course, lab in at most colleges you have like a 4 hour lab. So we were supposed to have lab the one day, but it rained. And then instead of him, sometimes professors they just like, yeah, you do something for like an hour, and then all right, you could just have the rest of the time. Not Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil made us sit in that class for the entire time we were going to do lab. Instead of us getting a lecture, he lectured for the entire 4 hours. And
Whoa.
then
No.
when he did that, that's when I really self-assessed. And then it just kind of took me down this self-discovery journey where I'm just like, you know what?
Mm.
I thank him for that, because what it helped me realize was that I wasn't really as into the sciences as I thought I was. So then I kind of changed my major, and then just was kind of going back and forth about trying to figure out what I actually wanted to do. And then ultimately, I ended up having it was one it was like a winter break. I had one of my a good colleague of mine. His name was Craig. So he actually worked over at the University of Pennsylvania in their emergency room office.
Mhm.
So at the time, they were getting ready for their JCO inspection, or the Joint Commission inspection. For those of you who not really in the healthcare world, but essentially that's the regulating body in
Okay.
terms of making sure that you're following policies and not doing anything illegal. And so they were actually getting ready for their JCO inspection. And so I was actually for a temporary position in the emergency room office to help get their emergency room records prepared for their JCO inspection. And so when that was one of the best things that happened to me, because getting that position, it helped me recognize that it was like, wow, there's this whole other side of like healthcare that I never even really paid attention to, which
Mhm.
was the healthcare administrative side, because it was this whole back office. They're doing all these going over, making sure people staff are following policies and doing all the administrative things behind the scenes that are actually keeping the emergency room going. And so that got me that really opened my mind to the thought of me having, I'm like, wow, I can have a career still in healthcare, but I don't necessarily need to be a doctor or a nurse to be
Mhm.
in healthcare. So once I had that position, that's what really put me on a trajectory to seek different positions within healthcare where I would be able to serve, but they weren't necessarily like medical or clinical specialties. So that's actually what motivated me to go back to going to grad school for health administration. And then once I got that, or once I was as I was doing my studies in my master's program, and then also once I ultimately finished, that's when I really kind of got into the nitty gritty, where I was started off at skilled nursing, doing admissions and business development for there. and then that's what I ended up getting recruited to. So at the time, my hospital had just it was relatively new. They had started doing geriatric psych, and so we already had our adult psych unit that was already open. So I really got recruited to help build that program up, which has done really well over the course of time. So we have adult services, geriatric services, inpatient mental health. So that really has I think that that experience in the mental health side, even though I'm not a clinician or a practitioner, I think that that has really enhanced my passion for helping people really recognize leadership potential within themselves. Because one of the other things that I recognize is that one of the things that I always tell people is that before you lead any other person, you have to lead yourself. And I
Mm,
find that a lot of times when you're on like a lot of our patients that we've admitted on the mental health unit, they end up in a situation where they're on the mental health unit, whether it's suicidal or depressed because of a case where they haven't really taken care of themselves. I've even seen it on the acute care side, or excuse me, on the subacute side, and working in facilities where we'd have patients coming in. They just had a stroke, just had a heart attack, and they're in rehab. And then when you ask them, when you're talking to them during their admissions process, they're saying, "You know what? I was taking care of my sick loved one. I was taking care of this person," and then to the point where they forget about taking care of themselves. And so just recognizing that, I think that that ties into leadership, because I think that just similar to a caregiver who's taking care of a loved one, in order for you to lead people at an organization, you have to continuously be doing a self inventory for yourself. So one of the things that I pride myself in doing is helping people complete that self inventory, just so that they're able to recognize their unique talents, some things maybe that they struggling in, some things that they might need a little, some of the things, some of their strengths and things that they do well. So then you're actually, because once you actually are able to self-assess and recognize who you are, you're more equipped to serve people in the best manner, because you're not really necessarily conforming to a different style that is not comfortable or that does not come natural to you. Because we all have, I like to use the analogy of my favorite analogy. I just put up my finger and I'm like, you might be looking at the nail, I might be looking at the long part, you might be looking at the end, the inside part, but it's still a finger. So there's different perspectives on everything. So just like that, there's different styles when it comes to leadership. So there's, just because you have a different style than the next person doesn't necessarily mean you're doing something wrong or that you're doing a bad thing. It's just difference in perspective. And so I think that one of the things that's also important is just developing an appreciation for the various perspectives, because we're not always going to think the same way, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're wrong and that we can't work to accomplish the same goal, even though we're doing it from various perspectives.
yeah. Oh my gosh, so good. And I can tell you're passionate about the subject and passionate about leadership. Just the lighting up of your face, and you're just kind of sitting back, and now you're like, no, this let's hit this, which is so cool. And when we think about like this trail you went from, like you even got to the chance to intern and doing and seeing what it was like to be a doctor. Were your parents, or in your upbringing, were they like, hey, you can be anything you want to be, but we want you to be a doctor, or we want you to be this? Or was it all, hey, whatever you, we're going to be happy with whatever you do, just go and be you? And did they give you encouragement and that kind of stuff, or did that, a lot of that come intrinsically?
No, yeah, they encouraged me. I don't. They weren't like gung ho on me becoming a doctor. They were
Okay.
very much uh, just like, hey, figure out what you want to do. Like you can't do nothing. Like you need to do something. They were more of that from that perspective,
Hmm.
but they weren't really forcing me in one direction or another. They were very supportive in terms of they would ask me what my interests were, And then if there was something that I was interested in, if there was something that they could do to be able to support me in that, then that's they would, they would do that. Like I can think of once I started going on the path where I really wanted to focus on health administration. I can remember when I was in college one summer. This was like, I think this was the summer before my last year. My dad was a business banker, and one of the gentlemen that he was doing some work for in terms of helping him get financing was this gentleman. It was a guy named Dr. Silverman, and so
Mhm.
Dr. Silverman was a retired heart surgeon, and what he was doing was this is going back, this is probably like 2008, I want to say. So Dr. Silverman, in this area, he was starting urgent care practices. And so at the time, I had never even heard of urgent care, but he's like, hey, it's this new concept that's it was at the time, it was new in this area at least, where he's like, this is basically an alternative to you going to the hospital. So instead of he's like, we have an x-ray machine, we have an emergency room doctor here, and you can get all these different things, these different tests done, and for a fraction of the cost of going to the emergency room. Plus, we can see you a lot quicker. Plus, you can come here, you can get your physical, so you don't have to worry about waiting for a doctor's appointment. So he's explaining this concept to me, and I'm like, this is fascinating. And so Dr. Silverman was opening, he was in the midst of opening several urgent care practices. And so my dad was helping him secure the financing to open it. And so he basically was having conversations with him, talking to him about what I was going to do. And so Dr. Silverman actually invited me to come do an internship at one of the urgent care practices, working with one of his sons. And basically, what we would do is we were doing healthcare marketing. So we were reaching out to
Uh,
various organizations, whether it was nursing facilities, schools, all these different organizations into the community at large, basically promoting this new concept of urgent care. Because at the time, nobody really was there were not many people that were really familiar to the concept of what urgent care was. So our job was really kind of just promoting it. We were also doing various things in the office as well. But I got that opportunity. That wasn't something that Dr. Silverman was really thinking about or that was on his radar. I just got that opportunity because my dad had a conversation. He helped him out. So he's like, all right, you helped me out. So I'm going to help your son out in terms of helping him, put him in a position to really be successful in his healthcare career, which ultimately that experience definitely did help me. But that's just kind of an example of something I could think of where once I was kind of figured out what I wanted to do, where my parents were able to put me in a position to, just to help me be able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. And then even with as I mentioned before, my dad was very good friends with Dr. Jackson. So even that situation was a case of where the relationship he had was something that it put me in a position where I was able to shadow and being able to meet other physicians in various specialties. Some of the specialties I wasn't even familiar with. I never even heard of them. But ultimately, even though I didn't become a doctor, like a medical doctor, in the long run, it's still very much that experience very much helped shape who I am today.
You make such a really good point because one of the things that has been consistent in your story and the things you talk about is associations and how important associations are, and knowing the right people. And they say the people that we hang around with in our lives now, are pretty much just like we are, and same income level, same thought process, same things we do. That inner circle of five. And it sounds like you were introduced to some really good associations. And now that I'm watching, I'm like, okay, this is a guy, Dr. Vance is a guy that you should want to have an association with because he can lead you to other really good things. Maybe just talk to us a little bit about some of those associations. I mean, you talked about a little bit of them already, but and how have you tried to find people that could help you move forward? I mean, that's all, I guess, when we think about leadership and that kind of stuff. Or has it just been naturally where people, you just been able to be attracted to people that have helped you move forward?
You're talking about like associations in terms of the boards and those
Yeah,
types of
yeah.
things.
I'm just saying. So, do you seek out to be in groups in rooms that engage, I guess, and create a bigger level for yourself, or is it
Oh
just
yes.
naturally? And because when I think of like some of the folks that struggle, right, and then you look at the people that are around them and the people that they hang out with, you can see why they're struggling because everybody around is struggling, right?
Hmm.
And they just don't realize how important it is to maybe get out of my comfort group and then try to do stuff with other folks. And how has that? I mean, is that something that's been purposeful for you, or
No,
something that's been?
absolutely.
Yeah, maybe talk about
Yeah,
that a little
absolutely.
bit.
Yeah, I am very intentional about my relationships and what I give energy. I'm intentional about what I give energy to and who I give energy to. So I only want to be around people that are helping me elevate, whether that's mentally, spiritually, physically. I only want to be around people that are helping me elevate. So I have numerous, just from my relationships with fraternity brothers, have numerous fraternity brothers that are doing exceptionally well. You know, millionaires, people who have. I'm like one of my good friends who's a good attorney, and he's very successful attorney in the city. I can remember when I first met him, like he had zero. And like looking at it now, it's just like the amazing things that he's been able to do in terms of putting his family in a position. It's like me looking at situations like that and looking at just knowing his story. Those types of stories, those things make me feel like I can do anything, and as long as I'm putting in hard work. And so I'm very intentional about the people who I associate with, the people who I call my friend versus the people who I associated with. That's also, I think that's also there's a difference between that as well, because some people it's like just because we can be cool, but it might be by association versus somebody where it's like, all right, we've really developed a relationship where I can call you a true fun friend. So I don't think that there's any thing wrong with either one of them, but I think that the differentiate that making that distinction is something that's very important. And then also just making sure that I'm intentional about making sure that I am getting into rooms that are, especially when it comes to being empowered as a black person in America. Like I don't expect anybody outside of like people, other black people, to really be able to reinforce that, at least for me. So making sure that I'm recognizing I'm familiar with my history, I'm familiar with the struggle, but I'm also familiar with the fact that you can overcome anything through hard work. And I also am a believer that your circumstances and whatever's going on in the country and whatever policies, I don't believe that though it does has an have an effect on us. I'm of the belief that the mentally you can't focus on that, you become what you focus on. So I choose to associate with people who are laser focused on accomplishing a specific goal, laser focused on their careers, laser focused on being the best fathers and being the best husbands and being the best people possible. So I'm very intentional about what I put my energy into and who I give my energy to as well. And if the energy is off, I'm not really a person who, I'm not a real confrontational type of guy. I'm the type of person who is just like, the energy is off, I'm out. It's just like, I'm out. I wish you the best. You can continue to do what you're going to do, but it's like, I'm out. I'm just not, it's just certain things I just don't give any energy to. So it helps me. I think it helps me maintain my inner peace. And inner peace is something that is very important for me because it all goes back to how do I want to lead myself? What type of what type of image do I want for myself? How do I want others to perceive me as well? So I'm very conscious about the energy that I give to people and to things.
Oh, I love that because I one of my affirmations that I say in the morning, I am intentional about where I put my attention, and I'm going to focus
I
on
like
where
that.
I'm at, and it's just so cool to hear you say that and articulate it in this way. And one of the things I noticed, I was when I went to college, I went to a private Christian college. It was in Southern California, and we didn't have an opportunity to be part of any fraternities, or that just wasn't part of the existence. Although I had cousins that were Kappa, some that were Omega, some were and one of the things that I noticed about your fraternity, Alpha Phi Alphas, is that it seems like, and this is just my observation from watching and seeing folks, is that every time I've been around folks that are part of your fraternity, it's always about lifting people up to the next level. Where some of the other fraternities, like we're here in Denver, I very rarely see a lot of alphas here. They're mostly omegas and kappas that I see here, because maybe that's just where folks have congregated and live at. But like the omegas do an incredible job of community service, and they're out there and but I don't see them lifting people up. I just see them serving. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying that they don't, because they probably do, but it's just not part of the conversation that they're always having. And I don't think I've ever met anybody in your fraternity that isn't always talking about how do we move somebody from where they're at to the next level. And maybe that's part of the associations and part of what you guys do and part of what you focus on. Is that, am I correct in watching that and seeing that? Is that kind of one of the foundation or privilege, things that folks that are you guys are doing? Or talk to me just a little
Well,
bit about.
of
Of
course, I'm always gonna be biased. I'm
course.
biased to my Alpha Phi Alpha, so no shade to anybody else, but I agree. I don't think that there's any other Divine Nine fraternity that emphasizes leadership. And we is a thing in Alpha, one of our poems where we call it the school for the better making of men. And
Okay.
so I think that, like, bar none, alpha really, it really challenges you to be a better man and to be a leader in your community. So every organization is doing amazing work, but I really do think that part of what, first off, I'm a legacy. So my father passed away a couple years ago, but my father was an alpha,
Okay.
and so when I went to college, I already knew
New.
that it's like, if I'm gonna be Greek, there's no other choice for me.
Yeah.
But aside from the fact that my dad was one, just me looking at the people that he associated himself with, then you also look at some of the more prominent people like the Martin Luther Kings and those types of individuals who are leaders in a major way. I just really felt like it was something that really I wanted to be a part of, and it just felt like it was something that it was just something about the organization at whole, but then also the other men that I met, where it's you really meet a lot of gentlemen that are just pushing you to not only be a better leader for your community, but also a better leader for yourself. Like,
Mm.
it really challenges you to be a better person for yourself, because ultimately gets back to what I was saying before. If you the better you are, the better you're able to, the more capacity you have to be able to serve others. So I think that one of the things that gave me a good foundation to really be able to recognize some of the skills that I had within myself, and really being able to focus and think about them, and really just being able to use my gifts and using my talents to be able to serve others in a major way. So I really credit my experience with my Alpha Phi Alpha brothers to really helping bring that out of me. And then now that I've been in, so of course I'm like I said, I'm active still, and really involved with my chapter here in Philadelphia. And so, what I always make sure that I'm doing is when we have men that, whether it's men or sometimes not really so much the young men, since we're not really an undergrad, but when we have men that are looking to join our alumni chapter, one of the things that I'm always doing is making sure that it's like, I don't want you to just talk to me because you want to become a member of this organization. I want you to be associated with us because you want to be a better man. You want to
Mm.
be a better leader in your community. And so I'm really asking them questions, and just really kind of challenging their way of thinking, because I want them to think about who they're going to be as a man when they join the organization at large, not just who you're going to be as an alpha man. So because I think that even though alpha is a part of me, it's a small part of me. The Vance Cooper, there's many there's much more to Vance Cooper than alpha. And that's why I want, like, I think that even if I'm not active, I think that those tools that I've gained as a part of becoming a member of the organization, I think that those are things that are transferable in every facet of my life. And then one of the things that my chapter has done as well is that we've also done like had personal development like for chapter brothers to
Mhm.
where it's not even a focus on what we're doing as in the community or what service we're doing. It's more of a focus on like, hey, what can we do to challenge each other to be better leaders amongst ourselves. And so I think that that's something that really that's something that really I'm really proud of as that I've been able to gain as a part of being in in the organization. And it's something that as I get older and become, kind of ushering in the new generation, I've also recently become a one of the advisors for so we advise an alumni. We actually advise the chapter over, it's Delta Pi chapter over at Cheney University. So I'm also part of that advisory team. So that's something that I'm actually, I just became started doing it, but that's something I'm actually looking forward to as well, because then it also gives me an opportunity to not only um, do some provide mentorship and guidance for my own chapter, but also the undergraduate chapter, which ultimately that's the next generation of young men who are going to be leading the way. So I'm very passionate about being able to and excited about that opportunity as well, being able to pour into those gentlemen.
Wow. So cool. I guess I'm 61. I guess it's never too late, right? To
It's
get
not.
going.
It's not.
I love
It's
it,
not.
love it, love it. Wanted to kind of talk about service. So one of the things I talk about a lot in my other podcast, which is called Living Boldly with Purpose, one of the questions that I continually ask is it possible to live in purpose and not serve others? And so I want to ask you that question because I'm not going to answer. I'll let you answer it. Is it possible to live in purpose, to do what you were made to do, what your assignment is on this earth, without serving others? And if not or so, then how is that acted out in your life and how you go about life?
Well, to answer your question, no, I don't
Okay,
think that it's possible
I love
to
it.
live in purpose without serving others, because I think that your purpose should be tied to something that is serving others.
Yeah.
So whether it is just using something at the lower at something small, even if you're like a musician where you're serving others through entertainment or whatever else, community service or whatever. But I think that your purpose should be tied to it has to be tied to serving others, because we're on this earth to serve each other. We're all leading something, and then we're all following something. And so I think that once you are able to recognize what your purpose is, I think that your purpose is going to naturally serve other people and to other people, and then it should be serving other people to their benefit. It shouldn't be serving them in a detrimental manner as well, because I mean it's possible for you can lead, and you can lead doing the wrong thing, or you
Oh
can
yeah.
lead in a way that is leading to somebody on a path of destruction or leading them to their downfall. So I think that that's also something important to recognize. But I think that when purpose is present, it's going to end up serving the people. Now, sometimes it might take some of us a little bit of time to recognize what our purpose is, because I do believe that we have, especially when you look around at your neighbors and you kind of listen to what people say, and you look at some of the people's actions, and they're not operating in a purposeful manner at all. What they're
Mhm.
doing is basically one of my coaches that I work with, he brought up. I don't know who the original quote is attributed to, but he said, uh, you want to be a person that is working towards a goal in the day, while most people just kind of work just to get through the day. Where
Mhm.
you if you're working in a purposeful manner, you're working towards some sort of goal that you have set for yourself. Whereas if you don't have a purpose, you're just kind of moving, moving aimlessly, just getting through your 24 hours. But when you have some sort of a purpose and it's tied to a specific goal, you're always going to end up in a position where you have an opportunity to be able to serve people based on whatever that goal you're trying to accomplish is.
Yeah. Oh my God. So good. So good. I want to kind of talk about I want to jump into the health world because one of my pillars of the eight pillars of a healthy abundant life and living that purposeful life is that you are healthy. And so we kind of run in some of the same circles. I've been doing reverse mortgages for a long time. I've been doing, I worked as a chaplain at a rehab center for a while. And we got the doctor name like you do, where you walk in the hospital and they call you doctor, but then they go, "Come, my side hurts." I'm like, can't do nothing for you. Yeah, I
I
just can't.
definitely get that.
Yeah. So, but what's kind of when we think about our health, and especially as Black men or as folks of color, that sometimes our health isn't overall health isn't as important, whether it's our physical health or our mental health. We try to solve everything by ourselves. We think that we're invincible, that nothing can shape us, and then we walk around and we have all these ailments and all these things. But maybe just talk a little bit about how we can ensure that we're putting our health as part of our priorities, because I see so many folks and we die early and we die, when we think about our counterparts or our white men that are dying a lot older, and they're doing more exercise, and it's not just at the gym or it's literally your whole overall health. And I don't think we see it that way. We think unless it hurts so bad that we can't take it no more, then we go to the hospital or we try to seek services. And then you're a person who provides a lot of those services. And I know it can be expensive sometimes, and it can be, but I don't know if there's anything that I would rather spend some of my money on is making sure that I get to live a bit longer, right? So we talk about that a little bit.
No, absolutely. I am a big proponent of taking care of yourself. You got to take care of your physical health, and you have to take care of your mental health.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times, like I was just having this conversation with one of my good friends who we were because I'm a believer, and so I read the Bible on a regular basis. And one of my good friends in the body was saying that, like, we were just basically having a conversation about therapy and and going to the Bible. And one of the things I had to tell him is just like, hey, there's some things that a Bible doesn't need to be a substitute for therapy, and a therapist can't be a substitute for a Bible. It's
Mm,
like you have to take care of your mental health, because one of the things that happens is your mental health, when your mental health is off, it can lead to having various effects on your physical health. Like, I can remember when this was like early, so I'm turning 40 this year, but I was probably about 24, 25, where this is like, trying to find a job after grad school, and things weren't really going my way necessarily. And so I'm just under this immense stress and pressure that I put on myself, because I'm like, God, going to college, done all the right things, can't find a job. And it's like, what am I doing wrong? And so it was a lot of that going on internally. And and then I was having stomach problems. Like, I'm drinking a lot of coffee and stuff. And then I'm starting to have stomach problems. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? So I'm going to the GI doctor. You don't even, like, I had to have colonoscopy and everything. You never hear about people in their 20s really getting colonoscopies and things. They did colonoscopy, endoscopy, or endoscopy, and they done all this, and then everything came back normal. And then but beforehand, the doctor was like, you know what? Are you going through anything? And I'm just talking to them about the job and everything. And I'm like, you know what? I really think all this is stress related. Like, I
yeah.
really think this is
Oh my
stress.
God.
And so even something like stress or depression, like those things really have an effect on our physical health. And so you have to really stay on top of all those things. Like, so mental health, I'm not like actively going to therapy on a regular basis, but have there been situations where I'm like, hey, I need to get therapy, I need to talk to somebody that's, where I'm not where I'm not like, just circling in my thoughts and wonder what's going on? Absolutely. And then I also think that it's important for, like, especially when it comes to mental health, I think that it's important that we have different tools in our different therapeutic tools. Even if it's not necessarily going to a therapist, it could be music, it could be going for a walk, it could be meditation. We have to have those things to be able to kind of be able to take care of our mental health. And then if you do need to talk to somebody, I think that it's very important for us to recognize that our family members, they have a lot of things that they're dealing with as well. So it's not, sometimes it's not the fact that your family member does not want to listen to you. It just might not be necessary. It might be a situation that is too heavy for them to really help you get through. So rather than dumping something on on a family member, it's like, I'm going to dump this trauma or these
Mhm.
problems. I'm going to dump this on this therapist that I'm paying to be able to help me get
Yeah.
through this stuff. And there's just something special, or something there's something that is like liberating about being able to just go to a therapist and being able to talk. And then also with your physical health, I'm very I'm big on preventive. So
Mm.
I go to my doctor regularly. Like, I'm getting
Mhm.
my blood work done. Like, I just went to the doctor last week, which that was a 3 month checkup. So I'm going from going to the doctor just once a year, where it's like I'm kind of going a couple times a year now, just to make sure, because it's like I'm generally pretty healthy, but the probably the main thing that I try to watch is my like my cholesterol, because sometimes I like French fries and
There we
cheese.
go.
So it's like I try to make sure that I'm keeping my cheese and those things that I like to a minimum, so that I can keep that under control. But one of the things that I recognize is that if I'd rather know and be able to see what's it within my within my control, to
Mhm.
be able to kind of correct the issues that I'm whatever issue that I'm dealing with, I'd rather know. Whereas I think that, unfortunately, for and there's various reasons that black men don't go to the doctor, which distrust, and a lot of times people aren't really empathetic. And then
Mhm.
also sometimes there are certain things that just us as black men are more susceptible to than our counterparts in other cultures. So a lot of times that creates this idea that if I don't know, it's not a problem. When in reality, the things you don't know about could be killing you slowly. And so I'd rather just know about I've just kind of reshaped my mind to really just I want to know what's going on in my body, because I know I'm not going to be here forever. I'm going to die one day, but it's like I want to be as healthy as possible while I am here, because if I'm healthy, that way I am able to maximize my impact and my influence that I have on the people that I'm trying to serve.
And I love that. And as I think about my life and how important health is to me now, because I'm more excited about my life now that I know all the things and all the experiences that I have. Like the next thing, 15 years of my life, have to be this amazing thing, and my health needs to go along with it. Dr. Vance, it has been so super cool having you on today. I can't believe we've already talked for 55 minutes, and it could go so smooth. And I would love for
It
you to come
does.
back at some point. I would love to pick, maybe we just do leadership principles, and we just gel on, okay, now we know who we are. We've done introductions, we know our stories, but to really feed into folks some of the things that you're passionate about. But before we do that, before we end today's show, I'd love to know, is there anything that you want to make sure that our audiences get to know that we didn't get to talk about, or you didn't get to share with the rest of us? And please, how to get a hold of you and all that kind of stuff as you share this portion of.
Yeah, I mean, the people who are interested, if I've said something that has inspired you or made a light bulb go off or something, certainly reach out to me. You can reach out to me. LinkedIn is R Vance Cooper, PhD on LinkedIn. That's probably the platform I'm most active on in terms of social media. Then you can reach out to me via my website. It's vancecooper.com. Vancecooper.com is very simple. And just let me know what your thoughts are. If there's anything I can do, if you are looking for a speaker to come in to do a retreat or run a seminar, just really being able to kind of help the leaders within your organization, especially if you are an organization where you have some leaders that are kind of struggling, stepping into their natural gifts. Absolutely reach out to me. I'm very happy to help people recognize the unique leadership gifts within themselves. And again, it's just really about doubling down on who you are as an individual. And once you recognize who you are, you're going to be in a position to be able to serve other people. And so, how do you figure out who you are? You have to have a continuous process for self-assessment, where you're really looking at. And self-assessment is not something you do once. Self-assessment is something that you do. It's a cycle where you're continuously looking on for different ways to be able to improve. So, if that's something that you're looking to do, I would love to be able to help you and or your organization be able to do that so that you guys can go to the next level. So once again, www.vancecooper.com. That's the best way to be able to just kind of check me out and being able to see what I have going on and what I'm able to do.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much for being a part of our show today and just part of this experience. I'm using sticky notes. I don't know why, because I usually use, you know, so, a regular pad. Yeah, so good. Learned so much from you. It has just been amazing, fulfilling for me and my spirit today. So much more that I would love to have a conversation with you about. If this is your first show and this is, I would love for you to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, the notifications, and all those things. So because there's so many good episodes of so many folks that are doing it right, that are taking life and they're making it work in a way. So many times I meet with people and they're always complaining or they're always upset, and all the things that were, I guess, contributing factors to their life that they allowed to take over their life, instead of that determining factor from within that said, this is how my life's going to be. And I can tell, as young as you are and the things that you've been able to do, you have taken those determining factors and then just taken them and just ran with them in a big way. So I thank you for being here. For those of you guys, go ahead and hit those buttons. I can't wait to have that next conversation with you. I believe you're God's greatest gift. He loves you if you allow him to. You are also an answer to somebody else's prayer today. And so just be available for God to use you however you want to pray. Dr. Vance, I'd love for you just one final thought as we get ready and close out the show today.
No, thank you very much. Well, um, one thing that I always say is that, and it gets back to purpose. I actually got this from the late great Miles Monroe. Is your job is what you were born to do, or excuse me, your job is what you're paid to do, but your work is what you're born to do. And so I think
Mhm.
that when you're able to really tap into your work, your purpose is going to be tied to your work. Like your purpose is not going to be tied to any job or any position or any title. Your purpose is something that's a lot more deeper and meaningful within you. Sometimes people are able to figure it out on their own, but a lot of times people need some sort of external catalyst, whether it's some experience or whether it's a person that they're working with, to be able to bring that out of them. So just again, remember that your job is what you're paid to do and your work is what you're born to do, and your work is going to be tied to your purpose. So that's what I'll leave your audience with today.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. You guys have an amazing, awesome, just incredible, awestruck day today. And go in peace. We'll talk to you on the next one. Have a great day.